Hello friends, welcome to my channel. This is Charan. In this video I will show you in ASP.NET how to insert or save multiple selected checkbox rows from a Gridview control into SQL Server database table. And here we got the new output after adding the button control. Now I'm selecting the records from this Gridview control: Charan, Sam, Ben and Mark. I have selected 4 records. Now before click this button control to insert the records, let's check the database table, execute. Right now this table contains 0 rows. Let's insert the records. Insert selected records. Notice here we got a message: selected Gridview rows are inserted successfully. Let's check in the table also. I'm executing the table, and here we got the results of this table. The selected Gridview rows are inserted successfully. If you are a first time visitor to my channel, please subscribe to get the latest updates. For this video tutorial, I'm creating a new ASP.NET web application. Go to File, New, Project. And from the web templates, I'm selecting ASP.NET web application, and the .NET framework I'm using 4.6.1. The application name is selected checkbox rows insert Gridview. Okay. And from the templates, I'm selecting empty template. Okay. And the project is successfully created. Let's open Solution Explorer. Now in this application, I'm adding a new web form page. Right click the project name, add web form. The web form name is insert checkbox Gridview rows. Okay. And here we got the source page of the newly created web form page, insert checkbox Gridview rows. Now between this form and div tag, I'm adding center tag h1 how to insert selected checkbox rows from Gridview into SQL Server database. Horizontal line. After the horizontal line, I'm adding a Gridview control. Open toolbox. I'm expanding the data folder, and there is a Gridview folder. There is a Gridview control here. I'm adding that one, and here we got the Gridview control. Now first in this Gridview control, let's bind some table. Right click the mouse, view code. Now in the view code behind, I'm adding the SQL Server namespaces using system.data, using system.data.SQL client. The last namespace is using system.configuration. After adding these 3 namespaces, the next one, let's add the database name in this data connections folder. Right click the data connections, add connection. I'm adding SQL Server name. After adding SQL Server name, I'm selecting the database name. Sample DB is my user database. I'm selecting that one. Test connection is succeeded. Okay. And here the sample db.dbo is added under data connections. We need the data source of this sample db. Right click the sample db.dbo, go to properties. Now in the properties, there is a connection string which contains a data source. Just copy that one. Now open Solution Explorer, open web.config file. Now in this web.config file, inside the configuration, I'm adding the connection string settings. Add name is equals to, I'm adding connection string name, my connection string I'm pasting the data source which I have copied. Provider name is equals to system dot data dot SQL client. After adding the connection string in the web.config file, again switch back to the code behind. Let's write some code to bind the data into a Gridview control. String main con is equals to configuration manager dot connection strings between double quotes. I'm adding the connection string name, which is my connection. Copy this one, paste here, dot connection string SQL connection. SQL con is an object, new SQL connection. I'm adding main con string SQL query is equals to the SQL query is a select start from the table is a DBO dot. I'm adding the employee table. SQL command SQL com is equals to new SQL command, which takes two parameters. The first one is a SQL query command text, comma, the second one is a connection object, which is a SQL con. SQL con dot open method. Let's close connection string also with close method. Now between this open and close, I'm binding the employee table into a Gridview control using execute return method. So Gridview 1 is the ID, data source is equals to SQL com method dot execute reader method, Gridview 1 dot DataBind. Now switch to the source mode. In the Gridview control, I'm adding the property called auto generate columns is equals to false. Let's add some columns. Item template field, item template. Now in the grid view, the first column I want to add the checkbox control. Open toolbox, expand the standard folder. Here is the checkbox control. The first column we have added the checkbox control in this grid view control. Now the rest of the fields I want to bind data from the employee table. Let's open SQL Server Management Studio. We'll check the table and the column names. Table name employee we have binded, which contains 4 columns: ID, name, email and salary. The column names in name, email and salary only. So the second column name is a name. I want to bind into the grid view control. So again we need the template field, ASP template field, item template. Now in this item template I'm adding the label control. Go to toolbox again, the label. I'm changing the label ID to LAB name. In the text property I'm adding between single quotes percentage hash bind method between double quotes, adding the column name from the table. Let's copy this one. Again, next column name, adding template field. I'm changing the label ID from label to email. This one is the email. Just copy this one. Salary. After adding the columns, the checkbox control, name, email and salary from the employee table, now we'll add the table headers. In the table header template field, header text is equals to employee name. The second one is the header text, email and the third one is a header text, which is salary. That's it. We have written the code to bind the data from the employee table into a Gridview control. Let's check the results. Google Chrome, and here we got the output. Notice the employee table is binded to this Gridview control with the checkbox column. Now my aim is whatever the selected checkbox in this Gridview control, I want to save those all selected records into a new table in SQL Server database. So let's create a new table in SQL Server. The sample DB database, I'm creating a table in the sample DB. Right click the sample DB, new query, create table, dbo dot gridview insert is a table name. ID, the first column name is the ID I'm adding, which is a not null. Identity, auto generate column I'm adding for this ID, as well as it's a primary key, the column is. Next one is a name, varchar 50. The next column name after the name is the email, varchar 50, and the last column name is a salary, which is integer type. That's it. Let's create this table, execute, and here we got the message command completed successfully. Let's browse the table Gridview insert, refresh the sample db.database, refresh, expand the tables, and here the Gridview insert table. Let's browse the table, select top 1000 rows. Right now this table contains 0 rows. Let's insert the selected Gridview rows into this newly created Gridview insert table. Switch to the coding part and stop debugging. Now after the Gridview control, I'm adding a button control, toolbox, button control. I'm changing the button text to insert selected records. Switch to the design mode. Now double click the button control, and here we got the button click event. Now in this button click event, instead of writing the again connection string, I'm just copying this one, this here. I want to save only the selected checkbox rows from the Gridview control. So let's add for each loop. The checkbox controls are in the Gridview control. So I'm adding the Gridview row. 0 is an object in Gridview 1, which is a Gridview control ID dot rows property. After that, let's create the checkbox object. Checkbox select is the object name. Grow dot find control. The find control method takes the ID string, which is a string. Here the ID is the checkbox control ID. We go to switch to the source mode, checkbox ID, which is the checkbox 1. Let's add that one as, what is this control? Is a checkbox. So let's add the checkbox class. Now I'm adding the if condition. Only the selected rows I want to insert. So if checkbox select dot check property, let's add the connection string. So I'm just copy this one and paste here. String SQL query is equals to, here the SQL query is the insert statement. Insert into, the table name is dbo.gridview insert. Just copy this one, paste here, and the values at name, at email, comma, at salary. SQL command, SQL com is equals to new SQL command. Here I am adding the SQL command takes two parameters. The first one is the SQL query, comma. The second object is a parameter is the connection object, which is the SQL con. SQL com dot parameters dot add with value. The add with value takes two parameters. One is the string parameter name. Between double quotes, the parameter name is the at name, the column name, comma. The second parameter is the object value. Here the object we are getting from the Gridview control. So the object here is grow dot find control. The find control takes the string ID value. So between these double quotes, I am adding the label L name, which binds the name column. Copy that one, as this one is a label control, label. So what I am doing is we'll put this in a brackets. Dot text property. Let's copy this one, paste here. The second column name is email. Let's copy this one. The controller ID is email, lab email, which is a label control. And the last one is a salary. Copy this one, paste here. I'm deleting this control name and the lab salary. After that, SQL con dot open method. Let's open the connection string, as well as we have to close the connection string also. Now between this open and close connection string, I'm executing the query. SQL command dot execute non-query method. Once the selected rows are inserted successfully into the database table, I want to display a message on the browser. So for that, after the close connection method, let's add a label control after the button control. Literal control. Let's add the literal control. Just for the change, I'm changing the literal ID to little msg message. Literal message dot text property is equals to selected Gridview rows are inserted successfully. So after adding the message, now the main important is, notice here in the page load we have to put if not page.is post back. I'm closing this curly braces after the SQL connection dot close method. If you don't add this page is not post back, the records are not inserted to the table. Let's check the results. Google Chrome, and here we got the new output after adding the button control. Now I'm selecting the records from this Gridview control: Charan, Sam, Ben and Mark. I have selected 4 records. Now before click this button control to insert the records, let's check the database table, execute. Right now this table contains 0 rows. Let's insert the records. Insert selected records. Notice here we got a message, selected grid view rows are inserted successfully. Let's check in the table also. I'm executing the table, and here we got the results of this table. The selected grid view rows are inserted successfully. That's it.